January 24th. In just a minute, we'll stand for the invocation that will be given by Father Peter McLaughlin, rector of the Basilica of St. Michael's, Archangel, which will be, and if you would remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Larry B. Johnson. Please stand.
Let us pray. Lord God, in the Scriptures you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city government and officials, and in particular for this assembled council. Graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even though there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance that what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Pensacola. In your most sacred name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in our pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now move into open forum. Open forum is the opportunity. Opportunity for citizens to speak on the issue that is not on the agenda. If you have signed up to speak, make sure that the item that you would like to address is not on the agenda item. If it is, then please sign up for it at that time. For folks that would like to speak, if you would fill out a blue card, and their blue cards are outside in the lobby and in front of the chambers, and also in front of the speaker's podium, and if you would give them to the clerk. The guidelines for speaking are that we're limited input to 4 minutes, and with that, we'll go ahead and move on. There's 30 minutes allotted to this segment. If we run over, what we'll do is the folks that did not get to speak at the beginning will have an opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting. And with that, I'll start off with the first person that has signed up to speak, Mr. Al Singstock.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council, Mayor Hayward. First of all, having been in municipal and county government for 26 years, I'd like to thank you for all that you do for this city. I'm here to introduce a new nonprofit company. The name of our company is called Good Works Partnerships. And our primary mission is to provide tools and equipment to those that may not be able to afford them, that would like to clean up their yards, do repair work to their homes. We provide everything from weed eaters, lawnmowers, rakes, shovels, all the bags, gas, oil, everything needed for someone to help themselves in the maintenance of and the redevelopment of their properties. For those that are physically challenged, we have volunteer crews. We're setting up volunteer crews throughout the county that will be available to help people that can't actually do the work themselves. We just finished our first project with the county. We've connected with both the city and county code enforcement staffs, and they're both very thrilled to know us. And we just finished our first county project, which ended up a combination, and you can see in the name of our company, it's called Partnerships. It's about blending and mixing and adding together all of the possible resources to end up with a successful outcome, because in this day and age, no one company, no matter who they are, is likely to be able to do everything. So we ended up with 3 volunteers from one church, 2 from another church. We had 3 individual volunteers, and then FaithWorks actually came and helped us with some of the heavy lifting with the higher weeds and so forth. We had a carpenter that volunteered his time to replace the windows that were broken and to do some board up and painting work. And obviously the impact on that community was significant, and we had people driving up and down going, thank you. And the healing experience of this kind of work is just a joy to me. I have my own history is I've been a code enforcement redevelopment manager, have been a community services director and manager, and so whenever I look at a city, I look at everything through that lens, and I understand how all of this fits, how it impacts both the physical health, how it affects crime, how it affects economic development, and so I am very clear on the necessity to provide these resources. Our company can be used in a number of ways. One is obviously if you want to borrow tools, you just contact us. I've given you my flyer, and we will make the tools available for free. We'll lend them to anyone that needs them. The other way is for those that are physically challenged. We'll put together a volunteer crew to clean up the property and arrange to get rid of any debris or anything that comes out of that project. But also we'll provide to any community action group or any club that wants to take on a project, we'll provide them with the tools and let them use those. If they want to clean a park, if they want to do a trailhead, we'll make sure that they have all the tools that we have. We have generators, power washers. We have almost everything that one can need. So again, we are really about putting together partnerships. We're looking at blending. I'm going to be meeting with the city's neighborhood services staff on Monday, and we're going to be talking. I have an entire class from UWF, from the Environmental Studies Department that's available to. We're going to start working on some of the cemeteries that are overgrown, some of the city parks. And so basically, these are the kind of things that we want to do and we want to do. Just as a sidebar, we are funded by Studer Charities. Quint Studer is my younger cousin, and we're all very proud of Quint. And so he has basically provided us with the funds to start this program, but we will be looking for other funding streams and other donations as we continue to grow and expand in the Pensacola area. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next speaker, Mr. Mark Taylor.
Thank you. Mark Taylor, 1111 East Marino Street. President Wu, City Council members, just wanted to give you a quick update on what we talked about on Tuesday. Had a action-packed meeting last night at the Maritime Park. Great group of people getting behind this, looked at the hurdles, looked at the benefits. Let me back up. USS Forrestal idea for the economic growth of downtown. And hoping to meet with each of you guys when you're available to talk. It's definitely an uphill battle, and Admiral made a phone call to this morning on our behalf just to get some details on the ship's present condition and where it's at and what can be done with it. It's Jeff Miller's office is working on it from their side as well, so hopefully things are going to move. There's only about 5 of these in the whole country, so to be a 6th right here in Pensacola would be monstrous. And we're very excited. The minimum economic impacts we're seeing is $20 million a year plus. So this is a serious deal. Pay back your money fast. 50 to 60 year kind of program. Alabama's been over there for 40 years. So this is a long-term investment. This isn't something that's just going to be an overnight wonder. This is a long-term deal. So just wanted to give you an update. www.ussforrestal.org is our website. 2,000 petitions signed since Sunday night, and we're getting ready to launch a national campaign next week. So things are going to keep rolling. So thank you so much. If you ever want to talk about it, just holler at me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. And the last speaker I have is Mr. Brian Keesler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Byron Keesler, 516 West Blount Street. I didn't see my topic on the agenda, so stop me if you.
It's not.
If it is, okay.
It is not.
Okay, thank you. The old saw, when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you need to do is stop digging, was never more apropos than it is here today in Pensacola. We find ourselves with obligations that the most improvident, the most profligate of prodigals would have avoided. And saying "we told you so," I know is not very gracious behavior, nor is there much satisfaction in saying it. But we did tell you so. We expressed concerns about taking on a huge debt burden at a time of declining tax revenue from depressed property values, with decades necessary to recover fully. Several citizens expressed concerns about unsustainable pension liabilities before they became frontline news, about the $20 million pledged to ECUA, the Sanger renovation, and on and on. We questioned revenue projections when the debt service on the ballpark was going to be a mere $40 million. The public was promised a public park with a maritime theme and a maritime museum, which, although admittedly would have produced no tax revenue either, would not have burdened us with $58 million of debt had it been the central attraction as promoted. And while I'm on the subject, did anyone ever consider partnering with UWF to make the museum affordable for them? I dare say that it would not have cost $58 million either. There's no turning back the clock, though. It is what it is. We have a beautiful ballpark that would be the pride of a city 3 times our size. That is to be the catalyst that rejuvenates the downtown, and maybe it will yet. But we also have a suffocating debt that threatens to consume us and pushes other civic activities and priorities to the back burner. Our only salvation now appears to be commercial development of the park. Forget the public amenities and the public access that were promised, but to be seriously considering a YMCA facility on prime waterfront property where our maritime museum was to be, frankly, rub salt in the wound to many of us. Yes, the YMCA is a worthy and deserving organization. So would a shelter for the homeless be a worthy endeavor, but would it be the best use of valuable waterfront property? Our public park is gone. We accept that. At least let's make the most of the property that's still available to generate some tax revenue. And by the way, whenever I hear warnings that a deal won't be on the table for long and that debate on the subject is not acceptable, a red flag goes up. And I would remind you that you were all elected precisely to question and to scrutinize and, yes, to debate every expense and every decision that comes before you, and not be cajoled into making decisions that deserve greater discussion and more thorough consideration. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keister. And last speaker I have is Mr. Gary Sansing. Mr. Sansing?
Gary Sansing, 1517 East Jackson, citizen of the city and county. I was going back there to thank Byron, what he said. Thank you, Byron. I second what he said. We ain't naysayers, we're realistic, or maybe truth-sayers. And about the YMCA down there, the man has so much money, there's many causes here to donate that to. I drove by the YMCA the day before yesterday and thought about it. There will be another vacant building. Spending it down there when we wanted public access to a park. Not something like that, but where citizens with not a lot of jingle in their jeans can go. We'll talk more about that later. I don't believe in spending public taxpayers' money for a mission to a park. well, maybe a national park, a token maybe. Yesterday I tried to make it to the meeting, your workshop. I think it was yesterday, so much is happening. But, yeah, it was Tuesday, because there was a program on Frontline, 9 o'clock on PBS. For years I've been talking about the Glass-Steagall bill and the effects of it. Dot-com bubble, Y2K, subprime loans, junk bonds, flash crash. And I am slowly hearing it discussed, what had happened. But if you'd watched that program, I think it was called The Untouchables. The Untouchables. Too wealthy to go to prison or to jail. It will happen, but maybe it won't. But I tell you what, we're certainly going to disgrace them. And again, who's paying for it? These guys that they're referring to. They've got their money in Rand, hiding out. But listen, I love the city, and the way to make it, well, I went to that, the mayor's redevelopment. It was good. I enjoyed, Dr. Ford, I asked him, could I have one of the reports? And I looked at it this afternoon. It's wonderful. It will happen. But you know when? In maybe 10 years. We will have to pay down our debts and be responsible, take care of what we got. I mean, that man marketing, he wasn't real good. We got some wonderful things in the city and county, and we will make it. We tighten our belts, help one another, and educate ourselves. And that means openness and transparent. And I hope a couple of you did watch this program. If not, well, I gave away, well, Thursday, I think, Tuesday, I did go to certain people that I know, they understand the issues, and they're aware of it. And some of them, Gary, it's on my tape. It's programmed in. Anyway, thank all of you. And what we got to do is push for our education. I will talk more on that later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sansing. Okay, now, next order of business is approval of the minutes. Does anyone see any corrections, omissions, or deletions? Okay, move to second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Johnson. Councilmember Johnson.
Councilman Johnson. Good. Okay. Passes unanimously. Councilman Spencer absent for vote. Okay, now that moves us into awards and presentation. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. In order to more strongly emphasize the city's commitment to outstanding performance, one employee is recognized as Employee of the Month. Please recognize, with me, Kenneth Peaks, Public Works and Facilities Department as Employee of the Month for January. Kenneth, can you please come forward? The City of Pensacola, up with Dr. Wu, please. Thank you, sir. The City of Pensacola is proud to recognize Kenneth as Employee of the Month for January. Mr. Peaks has been with the City of Pensacola since 1995. He transferred to the Public Works and Facilities Department from the Parks and Recreation Department in 2010. His positive attitude and work ethic made an immediate impact on the sign crew and made the transition seamless. He has become proficient with traffic signs and pavement markings in a very short period of time and has learned new skills quickly due to his eagerness to learn. Not only is he a quick learner, but he is always willing to do whatever is asked of him. During some challenging days of doing more with less, he has demonstrated that he is the type of employee that the city can build its future on. He is conscientious, thorough, and best of all, flexible. Kenny's coworkers and supervisor have commented on his positive can-do attitude. He is a pleasure to work with and always has a kind word for his coworkers and the public with whom he comes in contact. Because of his attitude, hard work, and commitment, we are proud to recognize Kenneth Peaks as January's Employee of the Month. Thank you, Kenneth. And both Kenneth's picture and the award citation will be displayed out in our Hall of Honor, which is right out here for anybody that wants to read it later. Thank you, Kenneth. Each month, we have employees who reach milestones in their careers with the city. These milestones, which are observed at 5-year intervals, are symbols of commitment, hard work, and dedication in serving the people of Pensacola. Employees are the city's most important asset. As part of the city team, they individually and jointly seek ways to improve the quality and efficiency of services to every citizen. Tonight, the City Council and the citizens of Pensacola have the opportunity to publicly recognize and thank this special group of employees. As I call your names, will you please come forward to receive an award of the city's appreciation and be recognized by members of the City Council in this community. For 10 years, Melody Skaggs, Senior Administrative Officer 2 at the library. Throughout her many years with the library, Ms. Skaggs has been a great ambassador for the organization. As the manager of the Southwest Branch Library, she has worked hard to consistently create a welcoming environment for patrons both young and old. There's always something happening at the Southwest Branch Library, and she is dedicated to providing excellent public service and is an asset to the West Florida Public Library System. Thank you, Melanie. "20 years, Cheryl Jackson, Payroll and Retirement Manager, Financial Services. Cheryl began her career with the City of Pensacola on January 15th of 1993. She currently has oversight of the city's payroll function and assists the city's pension plan administrator in all matters relating to pensions and deferred compensation. She serves as the accountant for the city's 3 defined benefit plans and ensures compliance with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Her role in the closing of the general pension plan in 2007 was key to the successful transition to the Florida retirement system. She was appointed by Governor Charlie Crist to serve on the State Retirement Commission, which allows her to keep abreast of all FRS-related issues that would impact the city of Pensacola. Additionally, she has been instrumental in preparing the various ordinances resulting from the recent union negotiations pertaining to the fire and pension plans. Thank you very much. Also for 20 years, Janice Terrell, Senior Marketing Representative, Pensacola Energy. Janice is a dedicated employee who is passionate about providing Pensacola Energy customers with the highest level of service while promoting natural gas as the cleanest and most efficient energy source. A high level of energy and enthusiasm contribute to her overall success as a senior marketing representative, and she knows that representing Pensacola Energy at various community events is critical to compete for new business. Janice is actively involved with the West Florida Home Builders Association, the Pensacola Association of Realtors, and the Home Builders Auxiliary Council, of which she is immediate past president. Thank you very much, Janice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reynolds. We can't say enough about our city staff. There's no question in my mind that we have the best there is. And can't tell them how much we appreciate everything they do for us. Madam Clerk, is there any public hearings?
No, sir.
Any judicial hearings?
No, sir.
Now we'll turn to the mayor's report, if there is one, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, Mr. Barker will provide his monthly report.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, President Wu, and members of City Council. This is the end of our quarter, ending December 2012. And at this point, I give highlights of the monthly, and then at the next meeting will be the full quarterly report that council will receive. This report is online for the public and for council if they want to refer to it at a later time. And also, President Wu, at your request, we put the Christmas colors in, red for negative and green for positive. But our franchise fees and public service taxes are down by about 1.18%. Half-cent sales tax is up about 1.31%. Communication services taxes are down for 2.83%. And these are just for the first 2 months of the fiscal year because the collections lag. Also, municipal revenue sharing is up about 0.94%. Totally, we're about $36,000 down as it relates to the general fund and revenue. Local option sales tax fund is 3.56% up. Local option gasoline tax about 1.19, and then your balances for your tree planting trust fund, park purchases fund, and economic development trust fund are there. Continuing to work on the pension issues. As you're aware, the union agreements are done except for the fire department, and those are being worked on. At your next meeting, we hope to have the police pension ordinance amendments as it relates to closing and terminating the plan, and looking forward to moving new employees into the FRS system, or those that elect to move into the FRS system. And then for contracts for the month of December, Trammell Construction, it was a SBE, $75,623 for Roger Scott improvements. Volker Incorporated, this is year 5 of a 5-year area-wide coordinating signal and timing. They are not a SBE, and the total price was $300,000. Allen Enterprises for replacement of airfield sign panels, not an SBE, for $41,223, and Michael G. Maroney Associates Airport Consulting Services for $29,401, and he is not a SBE also. There were no federal, state, or other buying contracts, and with that, that concludes my report, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yes. Don't turn away and walk away too fast. I know you're not used to getting questions. I just had a couple of questions about the increase in the half-cent sales tax, LOST. Is there any way to determine what areas of the city those taxes are generated?
I do not have that information. The state provides the sales tax figures. I know that individual businesses, report sales tax on a monthly basis, and then it's accumulated at the state, and then it's remitted back, a percentage of that remitted back to us. The state may have that information that I could check into, but remember, your sales tax, both sales taxes, are based on total collections within Escambia County, then divided by population. The city gets about 15% of the total. So
Okay.
it doesn't really matter where the dollar's spent at. If it's collected in Escambia County, then it's based on population.
Okay, so we get 15%.
About
of what's
15%,
collected.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the $75,000 contract for Roger Scott improvements, what were those improvements for? Would you know that?
I do not know that. I'm just reporting the contracts and the expenditure over $25,000 that council requested, but I can get you that information.
Okay, maybe under council communications, I'll discuss that with Mr. Reynolds. But if you can get me the information, that would be good too.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering what that $75,000 improvement is for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Barth.
Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and we can certainly talk about that. Mr. Cooper is here, and this was part of a contract of improvements in the Roger Scott area, and also included the bathrooms at Roger Scott, having some work done there as well. But Mr. Cooper, if you can kind of give an outline of what we're talking about.
The contract was originally bid for a larger portion, and there was some field work that was going to be completed out there as well. We reevaluated that part and took that portion out. Now the project is going to include the concession stand renovation, some work around the football field, and then some additional works at the restrooms and some awnings and things at the concession stand.
Yeah. And that's at the Roger Scott
Athletic complex.
Athletic Complex?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Reynolds?
No, sir.
Okay. Moving on, we then moves us into the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains items that were unanimously passed by the council at a committee hall meeting held on January 22nd, 2013. There was one item, appointment of Community Maritime Park
President.
Associate Board of Directors, that City Council appoint Mark Taylor to fill the unexpired term of Dick Baker, ending on October 30th, 2013, and Fred Gunter to fill the unexpired term of Councilmember Sherry Myers, ending October 30th, 2014.
Move the approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay. Next, is there any council member that would like to pull the item? Okay. Okay. I need to put the car in reverse.
But since you have the motion and a second on the floor, we can go ahead and take a vote and then go back to
Okay, good,
council
good.
communications.
Okay, please vote. Passes on a vote of 7-1, and Councilman Spencer absent for the vote. I need to put the car in reverse. There was something that, at the bottom of the page that I neglected to do, and that was council communications. Okay, Councilman Bear, I believe you were the first.
I don't think I was, but I'll go ahead and speak. Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things I wanted to share. One, a lot of you probably heard about this. There's a Escambia Youth Justice Coalition that's going to be having a community meeting on Saturday at 10 a.m. At my church, at the Wesley Abbey, which is the around the corner. It's actually Councilwoman Pratt's church as well, on the corner of Palafox and Wright Street. And there's a lot of churches, a lot of different organizations involved in that, and I think it's a real serious issue we have to deal with. If you look at the numbers on the number of incarcerated youths we have in Escambia County versus the country and even the state of Florida, we're about almost 4 times as many per 100,000 in Escambia County as there are in the state of Florida per capita. So we really need to address that incarceration issue. So I hope that my fellow council members and those that are watching on TV and those who are in the audience will consider being there for that. That's Saturday at 10 a.m. Also wanted to mention, I attended the most recent CNAP meeting, and they're talking about code enforcement issues, and I believe they're going to be coming to us with some ideas on how to improve code enforcement. I know we just came off a banner year as states in our website, but there's much more that needs to be done in code enforcement, so I'm looking forward to that. Also wanted to mention an idea that a couple people have talked about, and I think it's important, relates to MANA also, food pantries. We've got a lot of fruit trees in our city, and a lot of them sit there with fruit on them, and it never gets picked. It falls off. The birds love it. Probably some other animals love it as well. It could be an issue in attracting some animals we don't want. But I would love to see some of that fruit go to people that are in need, and I think it would be one of the things I'm going to press for, maybe with MANA and work with them, is some type of registry, a voluntary registry. If you have a tree or a plant that produces fruit that you can't eat at all and you'd like to donate it, that we'd have a way to do that. And finally, I just wanted to mention I'm hopeful that we have our workshop on rules and procedures very soon, because we had a 60-day window and it seems like we're going to be pushing up against that soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Myers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad that Councilman Baer was informed the public regarding the matters that are important to the public. We usually have been using this time to do just that. However, when I look at the council rules, under the definition of council communications, page 2 of our rules and procedures, it says, council communications which will be reserved for discussion only between the mayor and city council. So I'm looking forward to our rules and procedure meeting, because I do think the council should have an opportunity, as Mr. Baer just had, which was probably not in order. I could have called point of order, but I didn't want to do that. But it appears to me that council communication, it clearly says, is for discussion only between the mayor and the city council. Obviously, the mayor isn't here. Mr. Reynolds is. So I'm going to go by the council rules, and I'm going to address Mr. Reynolds. What I would like to discuss with Mr. Reynolds, just briefly, is the email we got from you, or at least I did, I don't know about the others, regarding bringing up the proposed, I suppose you would call it loitering ordinance, or sleeping in public ordinances that the council had considered about a year ago. And I had sent you an email regarding a letter that you forwarded to council about an incident on December the 10th regarding a person who apparently tried to panhandle some money from a citizen who was in a car. And I really wanted more information about that event. I could not find a police report, and the person was not identified as a homeless person. So I was just wondering if there was any further information regarding that incident other than what was in the letter. The letter caused me to have some questions about the event, because that event seems to have precipitated your sending the council a letter. Of course, I understand that you had an encounter that was not pleasant for you, and that first email that went out with this attachment could have been precipitated by the event that you encountered. But I was just wondering if you have any more information regarding that incident other than what was in the December 10th letter from the concerned citizen.
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does that do it
Yes,
for you? Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two things I wanted to bring up to the council. First, this Saturday at 11 o'clock, Pensacola Habitat for Humanity is having a neighborhood revitalization initiative meeting for the West Side Sunshine and St. John Coalition neighborhoods. They're within Council District 6 and 7. I received the email because of the at-large situation of myself. But, you know, the Habitat has come up among the council before, and I think it would be a great opportunity for us to hear what their thoughts are. It's going to be at First Corinthian Baptist Church. And the neighborhoods are approximately A to about Pace, sort of between Garden and Cervantes, if anybody's curious. But I think that would be an interesting opportunity to hear what communities say about Habitat's plans. And I hope you guys can make it. I'm hoping I can make it, but I have something scheduled then as well. So, and the other thing I wanted to highlight was another thing. I had something scheduled during, but the mayor had a press event yesterday about the Financial Prosperity Partnership. When I was in Boston for the League of Cities, one of the things that came up a few times, I went to at least one session on, I think maybe two that were sort of similar, was the concern of how to empower those who are at the fringes of the banking world. And one of the things they pointed out was just the prevalence of the check cashing and the need to get people who usually use check cashing into banks. And that's part of the initiative that the mayor's undertaking here, and I think it's a valuable thing. As well as the tax filing, one thing that I learned was with these tax filing programs, it's an opportunity for the person assisting the filer to help them understand about the earned income tax credit, which in a lot of larger cities, and they bring thousands upon thousands of dollars into their community that would have otherwise stayed within the federal government, simply by ensuring that those who are qualified for that credit do file for it. And so it's a great way to really empower those who are on the borderline and get them great resources. So I applaud the mayor's effort on that, and I hope that we can work together on that some more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. And just want to talk a minute about the crime wave that we seem to be having in the city of Pensacola. I have gotten some calls from constituents about crime issues in District 4, and I know it's all over the city in Escambia County and everywhere, really, for that matter. And it appears that what I'm hearing, and it's been, I think, even reported in local news, that the burglars are coming to homes during the day, knocking on the door. If no one answers the door, kicking the door in. And so this appears to be what's happening. I'm not sure where we're at on some of these burglars. I think that there are some that we're looking for at this time. The chief might could address more of that, or the mayor's office, Mr. Reynolds. But that appears to be what's going on. I had recently one happen just right down from my house. I know that the police chief's aware of this. I know that he's doing everything in his power to address this. I know the mayor and the city administrator is also. So it happens. I would encourage all to be good neighbors, to keep an eye on each other's property. If you see a door open that looks out of, looks like it shouldn't be opened, call 435-1900 or 911 if you see suspicious activity in your neighborhood. Again, we got to keep an eye on each other's properties, and I know that the mayor's office and his staff and chief are doing everything they can to address this issue. So I have taken your calls, and I have heard you, and I know that the mayor and the chief has heard also. So thank you very much. Let's keep an eye on each other's property. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councilman Johnson. Madam Vice President?
Yes, I just want to remind my constituents in District 7 that we're having our first Fifth Thursday meeting. There's first of 4 meetings throughout the year. It will be held at A.A. Dixon Academy. It is the old A.A. Dixon Elementary School. It's 1201 North H Street. It will start at 5:45 and a little social, and then we will start right away with the meeting at 6:15. So come out. This is our time. I want to hear your ideas, especially with budget time coming up. We need to make sure that we include items for District 7. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could just take a few minutes, I'd like Chief Simmons to kind of address some of the issues that Councilman Johnson, and thank you, sir, for bringing that to everyone's attention, because I think this is a good opportunity if we can just kind of give a general overview of what we're dealing with at this point. Chief Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Johnson's correct. We have mainly the end of last year, towards the end of the summer, and throughout the year, throughout the holiday season, we had experienced a number of daytime residential burglaries. We weren't seeing them at night because people were at home. Fortunately, these people, we have identified 3 different groups. Those 3, we've made an arrest in all 3 of those groups. We've cleared over 20 arrests. We made a number of those arrests last week alone. We want to caution everyone, and again, Mr. Johnson is correct, that just because you hear about arrests and because we make arrests and we think that we've got the majority of the people, the individuals that are responsible for these burglaries, both in the East Hill, Cordova Park area, and you're aware of the situation. We had some officer-involved shootings involving some of these burglars. We were obviously serious about capturing them, and we have captured a number of them, but we're not naive enough to think that we've got them all. So we would caution everyone that's listening, and we're working with our neighborhood associations to just do what Mr. Johnson said, to call us and let us know. And if something's going on right then go ahead and call 911 and let us get there, because of the 3 groups that we've captured, 2 of those 3 were captured because we had a neighbor that noticed a car that was suspicious, gave us that vehicle description, and it gave us something to go on, because obviously we can't be at every house, and we don't know which cars belong and which cars do not belong. The 3rd one, again, was just good police work, and the officers noticed some suspicious people at a door and ended up stopping them and getting in the car chase and the shooting and such. So we have experienced some home residential burglaries. It's not just in the city. We work with the county investigators. They've had some issues as well. But we're working well with the county, and we have made a number of arrests. And we have seen a reduction in reported home burglaries, but again, we're not finished yet. We realized that someone may well take their place, and so we have officers from 3 of our different divisions out there in our neighborhoods, and we're doing what we can to solve these crimes. Thank you.
I just want to thank you, Chief Simmons, for your good work, and Mr. Reynolds also for your attention to this, and I do appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Wynn?
I just had a question about who's representing the homeless people in this area. You know, we have citizens come up and we pass different laws, and I just wonder what process we have to look after the rights of the homeless people. You know, they can't go on people's property or they're trespassing, and we're going to the point now we're going to be stricter about them going on parks and public lands and doing things that they have to do. I just wonder, is there any consideration given to the rights of these people? Or most of them don't have anything. You'll see them sleeping along the street or sleeping on a park bench or things like that. I wonder if there's any process or anyone that speaks for those people's rights.
Okay, Councilwoman Myers.
Yes, I'm sitting here. And there are people out in the community who are providing a lot of services to the poor and the homeless. But I think every public official has taken an oath of loyalty to the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Florida Constitution, and our own city laws. And we should all be vigilant that every person, regardless of their status in life, have inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And those rights are set forth in our Bill of Rights. And no group should be singled out for special treatment. That's a denial of equal protection of the law. So, to answer your question, there are people who have been down here to City Council, and I'm sure they will be back. But every one of us is the protector of the rights of every citizen, everyone here on this council.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to be clear, what we're looking at is conduct, not a class, and everything that I bring forward on this particular issue has been through the court system, because frankly we're taking it from other places that have had the court challenges. So you know, if there is conduct that is not to be allowed, then that's ultimately for you to decide. But to suggest that somehow the city is in any way trying to go after a class of people, whether it be an economic class or any other class, is objectionable. And what we're dealing with is conduct. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I don't see any other lights. Before moving on to report of committee to whole, I would like to give a commendation. Saturday, I, along with the majority of folks sitting up here, had the opportunity to attend the Martin Luther King prayer breakfast. And at that prayer breakfast, our vice president, our very own vice president of the council, delivered what I considered a very elegant speech. And I just wanted to go on record of thanking her for her wonderful remarks on that occasion.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Right. Okay, moving on. Report of the committee of the whole. Committee of the whole report contains items which did not pass unanimously at the last January meeting, the committee of the whole meeting. Resolution in support of, number one, resolution in support of House Bill 13 and Senate Bill 52, regulating the use of wireless communication devices while driving. That the council adopt a resolution in support of Senate Bill HB 13 and SB 52, regulating the use of wireless communication devices while driving. The motion passed 6-1, with Councilwoman Myers dissenting and Councilmember Tahar absent for the vote.
Move the approval.
Okay, moved to second. Any discussion among council? Councilmember Myers.
Yes, I would just like to take the opportunity to state why I voted against this. Last week, during the consent agenda period, at the last city council meeting, a citizen wanted to speak to a consent agenda item, and she was told that she could not speak to a consent agenda item. However, our rules of procedure on page 8 state, public input on agenda items is limited to 4 minutes per speaker, period. It does not say that a person is only allowed to speak on non-consent agenda items. It says agenda items, period. So I believe that the rule is clearly stated that if we want to carve out an exception, we can work on that during our rules and procedure workshop. But at this point, I believe our rules give a citizen the right to speak on consent agendas. The reason I did not vote for any of the items coming up is because I wanted to preserve the right of citizens to speak on any agenda item as set forth in our rules of procedure. I will support the motion at this time. So I just wanted council to know why I voted the way that I did at the committee of the whole. I do support this motion.
Okay, Councilman Bear.
Call the question.
Okay, the question is called for. We need to first vote on that. It requires a 2/3 vote. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's called and second. Okay, so we're not voting on the motion itself, we're voting on the question. And this requires a 2/3 vote. Please vote. Okay, fails, so debate can continue. Mr. Messer, would you like to respond, or would you feel comfortable responding to remarks that was just made?
The remarks just made
By
on the
Councilman
addressing
Myers.
that could- Yes, I mean, I feel very comfortable addressing it. I mean, you know, Councilwoman Myers and I go back a long time, and I have the utmost respect for her, and I think she does a wonderful job as councilwoman. I think she's a good attorney, and I respect her support of civil rights and the First Amendment. And the bottom line is, I just respectfully disagree and have a different opinion. But, you know, lawyers have that happen all the time. I stand on my opinion, and that's about all I have to say on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Vice President.
Yes, even though the question was called and it was not seconded.
It was seconded.
It was seconded?
It was seconded.
Okay, and we voted. If there are no other remarks by council, we can just go ahead and vote.
Well, to call the question requires a vote on that item, and that vote is required to pass by a 2/3 majority. It did not get a 2/3 majority, therefore discussion continues.
Right.
We needed, in the normal circumstances, if everybody was here, I believe we needed 6 votes. Since Councilman Spencer is not here, I think a 2/3 majority would have been 5 votes. And as I recall, it did not have 5 votes. So
Right.
therefore, the move to call the question failed.
Right, it fails, and if there are no more discussions, then we go back to the.
Well,
original.
Councilman Barrett wants to speak.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying. Thank you very much, Vice President. Councilman?
Thank you, Council President Wu. I hadn't planned on speaking because I thought this was something that most everyone agreed with. And I had a feeling that Councilwoman Myers opposed this due to the issue with the consent agenda, which that discussion had nothing to do with this resolution at hand. But this issue, to me, is very important. I think it's important to a lot of people, the issue of distracted driving. And what this resolution, in essence, would do was just lend our support to the current House Bill 13 and Senate Bill 52, which are identical bills that relate to the use of wireless communication devices. As I explained in the Committee of the Whole, this is something that's preempted by the state. We cannot pass an ordinance to enforce this, so we have to go with what the state is able to enforce. This doesn't go as far as I'd like it to because it's a secondary offense, but I think it's the best we can hope for. It's a step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, please vote. Okay, and that passes on a vote of 7-1. Okay, the next item that came before the Committee of the Whole was voluntary annexation of property, that the City Council approved the annexation of 10 parcels which currently lie outside the city limit. The motion was passed 6-1 with Council Member Myers dissenting and Council Member Tahar absent for the vote.
Move the approval.
Okay, moved in second. Discussion? Please vote. Okay, passes unanimously. Okay. The last item to come before us is the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages at the Bayview Senior Citizen Center, that the City Council approved an ordinance authorizing the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages at the Bayview Senior Citizen on specific terms and condition. Motion passed 7-1 with Councilmember Myers dissenting.
Move the approval.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Please vote. Okay. Vice Chair Pratt, is there a CRA report?
The Community Redevelopment Agency did not meet. I do hope we will meet in the next week, since our contract with the city does expire this month, as I understand it. So we, at the last meeting, gave control of the meeting time to the chair, and so I don't know when our next meeting will be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Madam Clerk, that brings us, I believe, the ordinance is on first reading.
Item 14A is proposed ordinance number 01-13, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance incorporating a certain area contiguous and adjacent to the city of Pensacola and to the city of Pensacola, and declaring said area to be a part of the city of Pensacola, repealing clause and providing an effective date.
Move to approve. Second.
Move to second. I see no lights on. Please vote. Passes unanimously. Councilman Spencer absent for the vote. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Item 14B is proposed ordinance number 04-13, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance amending section 7-4-3 of the Code of the City of Pensacola, Florida, providing for sales and consumption of alcohol on the premises of Bayview Senior Citizen Center, providing an effective date.
Move the approval.
Second.
Okay, please vote. Okay, passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, our ordinance is on the second reading.
Item 15A is proposed ordinance number 02-13, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance closing, abandoning, and vacating a portion of the Valen Street right-of-way in Pensacola, Escambia County, State of Florida, repealing clause and providing an effective date.
Move the approval.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. Any discussion? Please vote. Madam Clerk?
Item 15B is proposed ordinance number 03-13, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance closing, abandoning, and vacating a portion of the Bay Boulevard and Bayou Boulevard rights-of-way in Pensacola, Escambia County, State of Florida, repealing clause and providing an effective date.
Move the approval.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. I don't see any members of council that would like to speak. We have two people from the audience. The first person is Karen Lessard.
Good evening. After reading the ordinance, I have a lot of questions, and I hope that they are shared by you. I also hope that they are shared by at least one of you who will make a motion to table the second reading until these questions can be addressed, preferably in writing to me and the other concerned people in our neighborhood. Is this going to be a private road over which the city has an easement in which we can walk? If it is going to be a private road, is it going to be labeled with a sign that says private road? And if that happens, what is the chilling effect on the public for whom the public was granted an easement? How are the people in the neighborhood, not now, not in the next few months, because we all know what's gone on in that with that property, but in a year, 6 months, 2 years, when the land changes property, how are we going to know as citizens that this is city property that we're allowed to walk on, ride our bike on, and I sure wish we could drive on that road on Bayou. We are citizens. We have a right to these answers before you pass this ordinance. Who is going to maintain the easement? If it is an easement over a private road, is the city going to be financially responsible, or is it the landowner? What if the landowner or the adjoining landowners in 5 years don't want to keep it up anymore? It's a private road, but a public easement over it. What are the responsibilities of the city? I think that question needs to be answered before there is a vote on a second reading. Will the residential development be named with an entry sign? And will they be able to put a gate up? I've read all the license cases from 1982 when Don Caton was attorney. I've read those, and I know that they're not supposed to. But if the city only has an easement and no longer has a right to the property, can the landowner effectively put up a gate to keep the public out of what the city has kept as an easement? Again, I ask someone who shares my concerns, my neighborhood's concerns, a citizen's concerns, to please table the second reading, make a motion to table the second reading until these can be addressed in writing. I hope you share my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second speaker is Harriet Allen. And she'll be followed by Joe Kirkwood.
Harriet Allen, 2911 East Jackson Street. I was down at the last city council meeting and made an emotional plea to please vote against the proposal to vacate the right-of-way. I realized that it seemed that your minds were already made up before any of us spoke, that the planning board voting it down twice didn't really matter, that maybe, you know, it was like the Senate or the Congress, they don't get time to read everything. I'm asking that you table this tonight so that you can look at it more closely. Because I think if you look at it, you'll look at all of the decisions that were made prior to you sitting in this position of responsibility and see that maybe there was a reason to stop for a moment and consider it. I had said, and I was thinking, and I had said to different people, well, you know, I hear that they may be moving the railroad. And that talk never came up. Well, what do I hear on the news? That they're talking of moving the railroad. So if they move the railroad, this right-of-way would then be on the waterfront, because that was one of the arguments, that it doesn't really go to the water, that it goes to the railroad, and we know it's illegal to cross the railroad because it's the railroad's right-of-way. So when the railroad's gone, what does it mean? Does it mean that this property, that we can take the easement and then we can go down to the water? Or does Hearst then say that the Todd estate owns all the way down and we can't walk on that? As I said before, the only thing we know at this moment in time, is that what we have right now as the public, as citizens, what we've always had. If you vote to just table it and look at it, that's all we're asking. I know it's hard for you guys to make the decisions that you make. I just think that you need to slow down on this one. And that's what I'm asking you to do tonight. It only takes one. It only takes one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kirkwood. And he'll be followed by Tim Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Joe Kirkwood, and
As you've heard before, I live about 2.5 blocks from this place. I go down there, and have gone down there about every day for many years. It's a part of my life. It's a part of many people's life. It's free at this moment. It feels free. I have a legal right to go there. I'm not under any type of oppression. I don't feel threatened by trespass. There are many questions that have been asked here tonight. How this right-of-way pedestrian path would be maintained, how it will be demarcated, how will someone know they can walk on it? If it looks like a gated community with a brick paved road, it's going to seem off-putting. If it has a sign that says private road, well, I think most people would understand that they would feel not inclined to go there. So it's not just about this year, next year, it's about many years. I've had that road for 30 years. I want someone in 30 years hence to have that road, and I want them to feel free when they go down there. This has been ill-considered. There have been many things not said. This neighborhood has not been represented. No one asked these important questions at the council meeting last time. They should have been asked then. We want you to consider the questions now before it's too late. And there's another point I would like to make. This process has been tremendously destructive to the harmony of our neighborhood. It's turned friend against friend, neighbor against neighbor. It's everything that a city should not be doing. You have the responsibility to try to create harmony in this town. This is a diverse community. It's one of the most wonderful communities in this whole city because it's diverse. This thing just grew up. No one designed it. You can't design a community like this. I've tried as a designer. You can't do it. The intangible qualities in this neighborhood take years to grow, but they can be lost in a heartbeat. This is destructive. It is destructive to our community. There are members of this city government that bear some responsibility for creating this disharmony. You know who you are. This thing has not gone well. We hope you will help us resolve this in a harmonious way, because up to this point, it has led to nothing but dissension. So for harmony's sake, for the sake of our community, do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkwood. And our final speaker is Mr. Tim Jackson.
Good evening, and thanks for letting me speak. I'm Tim Jackson. I live at 3001 East Gadsden Street, just blocks from our Bayou and Bay intersection. My main concern with the decision a week and a half ago, when I came down here, I thought there would be a discussion and a review. To me, a decision being made, at first felt like there would be two sides of the argument. Well, there is two sides of the argument. Some of you have constituents on both sides. But in my mind, our neighborhood has presented to you on 3 different times in the history of our neighborhood petitions with 250 to 300 names. These were not the same documents. These were petitions taken at 3 different times in our neighborhood. So a decision, I wouldn't say is a balance 50-50 on this. The petitions that were turned in are a clear representation of 99% of our neighborhood, and that hasn't changed in 50 years. In a review of city records and things that have gone on in our neighborhood would show the concern we have for this property the full right-of-way, not a chance to walk down a skinny path that was once a road that we enjoyed. We want access to these roads like we've always had, by walking and by vehicular traffic. The other point is the city to vacate a right-of-way puts the city in a position to deem that road of no use to the city. After 3 times canvassing different people in our neighborhood through our history and putting forth these petitions of 200, 300 caring citizens for that right-of-way, how can it be deemed by the city it is of no longer use to the city? The city objects that somebody would imply that a special group was singled out, ignored, or acted against because of their stature or class. Well, I profess to you tonight that the majority of our neighborhood has spoken, and we have been ignored. We did not have representation from the council last week. You stated your arguments, but they were not strong. How can we close a road based on a danger to access a railroad track when the railroad tracks are accessible all through town openly and all the way up Bayou Boulevard? How can we talk about trash when that road has been pristine most of the time? The trash can that was mentioned last week was full for a full month due to the city not emptying the trash. The trash was scattered somehow the night before the meeting. I picked it up the next morning. How can we talk about crime calls when the research was not done? There was 100 and something calls to our area. 99% of those calls were to the apartment complex.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Please table this motion and give our neighborhood the respect and consideration that we deserve as a majority of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Please don't leave yet. I see Councilwoman, sir, Councilwoman Myers' light's on, and I don't know if she has a question for you.
I did not have a question for you, but I am going to make a motion, and I want to explain why I'm going to make the motion. I have a very close friend who lived for about 30 years in that neighborhood, and I have spent a lot of time with her in the neighborhood. And I know how much this property, this access to this part of the neighborhood means to the community. I voted in favor of vacating the right-of-way because I have a lot of concerns over how the property is being kept, potential crime elements there, and evidence of illegal activity there. However, I believe that the questions, is it Lassard? I believe that the 4 questions that Ms. Lazard put forth to the council are valid. That the community wants to have the assurance that they are going to have access to the easement and to be able to walk freely, ride their bikes, walk their dogs, their children, as they always have through that beautiful property. And I do believe that the citizens deserve that assurance, and I do believe that there's no harm in having a response to the 4 questions Ms. Lazard, on behalf of the community, has put forth to council. I think it is in the best interest of that community to give the community the assurances they need that they are going to have access to the easement, that signs will not be put up that would cause a chilling effect on the public's right to access that easement. So I'm going to make a motion that this vote tonight be tabled until the next city council meeting, and in the next 2 weeks that the questions Ms. Lazard has asked be answered.
Okay, not hearing a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, now that moves us into discussion.
No, no discussion for table.
I'm sorry.
No discussion.
That's right, the table, that's correct. Okay, please vote. Okay, it fails on a vote of 5-3. Okay, so the motion to table has failed, and now we're voting on the ordinance as it appears. Please vote.
I'm sorry, what were we voting on, Mr. President?
We are voting on the ordinance as originally presented. And it passes by a vote of 5-3. Okay, Madam Clerk, resolutions. I'm sorry, Councilman Wingate, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wonder if, even though it was not held up to be tabled, is there any way that we could get these answers?
Let me see.
President Wu, I presume you want me to respond? Yeah, those answers are uniquely in the providence of the owner of the property. So those answers would come from him or her.
Does that help?
Are you saying that they are Mr. Hurst's decision to make?
Please, let's have order. Mr. Wingate, I believe they've asked for you to please repeat the question.
I guess my question is, could we ask Mr. Hurst to provide us an answer to these questions? Even though it may not be that binding, at least we could, in some form, ask him.
I don't know to address either the city manager or city
Well, I'll defer
attorney.
to Mr. Reynolds, but before I put him on the hook, I mean, anyone could certainly ask Mr. Hurst any questions he wants, or she wants. I mean, that's just, it's not, and that's my answer. Anyone can ask Mr. Hurst any questions they want.
Does that help, Mr. Councilman?
Yeah, I understand now.
Okay. Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. And if Ms. Lassard will send me an email with the specific questions, I tried to write them down as you came forth, Ms. Lassard. But if you would put an email to me at ljohnson@cityofpensacola.com, I will forward them to Mr. Hurst and his counsel and ask that we get some clarification and some answers to these questions. It might not be what you want to hear. I think that I want to try to work with Mr. Hurst at this point to try to make this the best development for the neighborhood that it can possibly be, that this, the access, the trees being saved, that the road is as environmentally friendly as it can be, and to maintain access for the neighborhood. So if you will forward me a list of these questions, I will very politely and respectfully ask Mr. Hurst And Mr. Beasley, his attorney, I will send him the email. I'll forward it on your behalf and the neighborhood's behalf. Try to get some answers for these questions for you. Yes.
And to follow up, you may think of us as really being unfeeling people, but I believe the council has heard your concerns. And should there be any attempt to prevent you from going to that property after what we've been told, I can guarantee you we will not sit by quietly. Okay.
Mr. President, if I could just
Certainly,
thank you, appreciate that. I see Mr. Hurst in the audience, and I don't know what Robert's rules actually allows at this point, but Mr. Hurst maybe could make some public comments about these particular questions. I would make a motion to allow that.
Councilman Bear?
Second.
Okay.
And maybe we can resolve some of this.
Okay, motion is second, okay.
I think he needs to make a motion to waive the rules first.
Yes.
Okay,
Way
I'll make a
outside
motion that we
rules.
waive the rules and allow Mr. Hurst to address some of these concerns.
Okay,
of
so
the
we're
neighbors.
first voting on waiving the rule. Okay, please vote.
We need a second.
I second.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We have a second.
I second.
Yes.
We're good.
Okay, please vote. We're voting on whether to waive the rules, and okay, that passes. Now, do we have to vote again? Okay, Mr. Hurst.
Mr. President, if I could, sir. I'm going to try to recall
Please.
some of the questions that were brought up by Ms. Lassard. And private road signage, driving, who will maintain it? Will there be a gate? And I might have skipped some. I can't even read my own writing at times, Ms. Lassard, but if I've missed something, please remind me of that, but I did try to write them down. Mr. Hurst, if you could address those issues for the neighborhood, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry for being late. I got stuck in Alabama, and I've just got a clean shirt on and ran down here.
Thank you very much for your participation.
I hear my neighbors. There will be no gate. I completely, that has been loud and clear. I have no desire, I don't want to pay for an extra gate. I got to pay for a road. There is no maintenance being done on the area right now. They're wondering about, where they're going to walk or whatever. We plan on putting an improved, a pervious surface, and that's for water, basically, to get to the trees. And we're going to maintain it. It's up to us. Now, my wife had called and said something they're worried about, what's going to happen if the neighbors, I guess, don't take care of the roadway. Well, that's our responsibility. And, I completely understand. In talking to members of the planning board, they vacate different areas of the city, on a regular basis. But this is going to be our main roadway into our homes. It is going to be a deeded access, and I'm not an attorney. My attorney's probably going to be down here. I called him and told him to come on down, but all I understand about the easement is it's written into the deed, and it's permanent. We can't just say, I can't just block it off and not let them come through there. I basically told the attorney, this is a community effort. I realize the importance of this area. Mr. Michael Allen has been very instrumental in working with me on this. Even though he's against it and I'm for it, he's still a great neighbor. And I have no doubt that I'll be able to work with some of these neighbors to get them involved with what we're going to do down there. This is not going to be a giant condo development. It's going to be our homes. And we're going to be part of this community. I don't want these people upset. I realize this is a touchy issue. If the city would have plowed down all those trees and put us a road in, we wouldn't be here today. But we're going to save these trees. We're going to build this area up. And I do understand their concern. I don't have a perfect answer that's going to say, I'm going to put a sign up saying you can walk here. It's going to be wide open all the way down to the railroad right-of-way, and then we're going to put an improved surface along the right-of-way for the railroad. I'll be happy to work with these folks. I've talked with Mrs. Lassard in the past. She has come down there. I've talked with Michael Allen. I've even had conversation with Mr. Kirkwood. We don't quite see eye to eye, but they are my neighbors. I completely understand that. If they want to have an input as to what we do down there, that's great. They all have my number. They know how to get in touch with me. I don't know if I've answered all your questions, but I'm
Okay. I think at this, let's see, Council, we've already voted on this item, and we're discussing something we've already voted on, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst, very much. Ms. Myers, is it really, okay?
This is a tough issue, and I do realize that, and I publicly tell my neighbors, they know how to get in touch with me. I have no problem working with them so that they can have input. If Mrs. Lassard wants to know where this walk, she's an attorney. She can tell me more about this stuff, and maybe she won't charge me like my attorney does. But, you know, she's going to be one of my neighbors. She walks down there. I have seen her down there. I have no problem working with these people because this is our community, and we are going to build our homes down there, and we are going to be part of this.
Okay, Ms. Myers, and I urge you please to be brief.
Okay, I just want to thank Mr. Hurst for coming down here, and I do feel comfortable with your answers. I know how passionate you are about being a part of that community and making the community feel that they are going to have the access that they want. And I just really appreciate you coming down here.
Well,
and
when we leave
giving
here
us
now,
those assurances.
I'm going to touch base with them and make sure they all have my number, and that we will all move forward with this community project. And if any of them would like to help me pay for that road, I'll be happy to take their donations. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hurst. Okay, moving on, Madam Clerk, resolutions.
Item 16A is resolution number 03-13, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Pensacola, Florida, urging members of the Florida Legislature to support the adoption of House Bill 13 and Senate Bill 52.
Move the approval.
Second.
Okay, move to second. Please vote. That moves us now to unfinished business. If any member of council has any unfinished business, Councilwoman Myers.
I'd like to make a motion that at the next committee of the whole, we have an update on our search for an attorney.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, move to second. Please vote. Passes unanimous. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Any other new business? Yes, Councilwoman Myers.
I don't have, do I have
Oh,
my
okay,
speaker
they
on?
didn't turn your light
Okay, I'm
off,
sorry.
so. Okay, seeing none other, we now move into new business. New business is mayoral appointment, city representation on Restore Act, that the City Council ratify the appointment of David Panzone to represent the City of Pensacola on the Restore Committee.
Move to approve.
Okay, do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so it's moved to second. Now discussion, Councilman Bear.
I move that we refer this to the committee of the whole for discussion.
Second.
The only, I see two lights. The only thing is, I don't know if the committee of the whole meets again prior to the deadline for when the name is to be before the county.
You can
So,
call a special one if you need to.
In that case, well, I'll withhold. Mr. Chair.
okay, all right, let me see, I've lost order, so I'm just going to start over here and move down. Councilman Wingate.
Okay, we already made a motion and passed that we would accept the mayor's representative that he sent down to us, going to the board. And are we backing up on that now?
Okay,
Can I clarify my motion?
please.
Motion to refer would send it to the committee of the whole for discussion. It's a majority vote required. It's a debatable motion. So right now, we're debating whether we should refer it to committee.
Okay. Does everybody understand what Councilman Bear says? So we're not talking about the merits, we're just talking about whether
About
we
whether we
send
should
it back.
refer it to committee.
Exactly. Okay, let's see, Councilwoman Pratt, are you talking to that item?
Yes, please, and I
Okay.
would just, I was hoping we could get clarification on the timeline. I understand that this is a time-sensitive issue, and I just but is it January 31st that the decision has to be forwarded to the county?
And I apologize, Councilwoman Myers, I was supposed to be working this way, and I skipped you. I looked right at you and said, Councilman Pratt, Councilwoman Myers.
Well, I have a problem that it wasn't put on the committee of the whole agenda. The mayor obviously knew who he was going to bring forward, and there was no agenda item at the committee of the whole. I think the appointment of this person is extremely important to the citizens of Pensacola, and I think it deserved more attention. I think that it should have been put on the agenda for the committee of the whole, and since that didn't happen, I think that we could have a special committee meeting. But I think that this issue deserves a lot more discussion, and that could have happened at the committee of the whole. I don't know of any reason why it wasn't put on the agenda, but that was the mayor's decision. And I don't think it's appropriate to bring it up at the city council at this late date. It should have been brought up at the committee of the whole. We can have a special meeting to discuss this further. So I'm going to support the motion, even though it would put us beyond the deadline if we have it at the next CAL meeting.
Well, yeah, I was just going to bring up, thank you, Mr. President. I just was going to bring up the same thing that Councilwoman Pratt brought up, that we're under a timeline. I think that the county has established a January 31st deadline to get this name brought to them. So if we are going to table this and discuss it, I believe it would probably be in order to have a special meeting the first of next week. I'm not sure, I think it's we have to notice with three-day notice, whatever that rule is, but you know, it might be, we're cutting it close. We're cutting it real close. I do have some questions too that constituents have brought to me about will Mr. Penzone be compensated? I didn't realize he had been compensated for his work on the pension issues. I think I even publicly thanked him for his volunteer work. So, so I have questions also. I would be in favor of having a special meeting the first of next week, as our rules demand that we give proper notice to discuss this and get answers. I've also had folks call me about if is he a city resident? I believe I'm not sure of that. I don't know if there's any requirements that that the county put on us as far as that. I don't think they did. I also had someone call me and said that there were some other very qualified candidates, such as Bettina Terry and others that that maybe have been passed up that I know are city residents. So I just the way this has kind of gone down, I've still got a lot of questions. I do apologize for not being at the COW meeting on Tuesday, but I've still got questions also, many questions, and I think Mr. Penzone's a very qualified individual. I have the utmost respect for him, but and it's not personal with him. It's just I have a lot of questions that I'd like answered for this very, very, very important appointment. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, Councilwoman, Vice President Joe Kennewick.
Now that I'm totally confused. Okay. There were some questions here, and I know that we've talked about this twice before. And in those discussions, it was not determined or not clarified for me if we were responsible for making the selection. If we bring it back to discussion and we're going to discuss the appointment, is the council responsible for making the selection, or is the council just responsible for telling the mayor that that's not the appointment that we want, and then he has to go back and do the process again? So I don't understand how that works. Even if we have a discussion, if the appointment is still in the hands of the mayor, then it would be to clarify whether or not this position is compensated, but the appointment still would be the responsibility of the mayor. So again, I'm just not clear on, even if we do the discussion, I know that in our rules, it says that we set up committees, but we're not setting up a committee. We're making an appointment that is in the control of the county, another entity, and this is a process in which they dictated. So I don't know how much leverage we're going to get that going back for discussion. Our concerns can be addressed, rather simply by asking the mayor whether or not it's compensated or not. But if we go back to the discussion and we have to go pull some other names, like will everyone be always 100% satisfied with this particular selection? We were also at a meeting and there was no criteria. The council itself did not set any criteria. Okay, so we've talked about this before. So the criteria for this person, it wasn't discussed whether or not this was a city person, whether or not, but it was for the person that would best represent city's interests, whether or not the person only had to have property. So we've talked about this a couple of times, and some of these issues have never come up. And the bottom line for me is, if we go back to discussion, who is ultimately responsible for this appointment? Are we going back just to say we want to nominate other people from our group for the mayor to consider, and he still has the ultimate appointment? Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you, Vice President. Councilman Bear.
Let me just clarify a couple things, and I think we talked about this, excuse me, in the meeting where we actually decided to go with, I made the motion to adopt what the county had recommended, and that was to allow the mayor to appoint, with us to, I believe the exact language is to, we ratify it, ratify by the city council. According to the resolution from the county, it says an individual appointed by the city of Pensacola is selected by the mayor and ratified by the city council. And during that discussion, we talked about, I think, Council President Wu made it clear that if we didn't want the person, that we would say we don't want that person, need to nominate somebody else. In the course of our discussion, the very limited discussion, this was a classic, I think my colleague down 2 seats from me will recognize this is a bit of an ambush for the council. We were given the name during the committee of the whole meeting, which was only 2 days before, due to the Martin Luther King holiday, it was only 2 days before the council meeting. We were given the name of Mr. Penzone, and ironically, the News Journal had a nice feature about him on during this past weekend. What they did fail to mention, which Mr. Johnson has already brought up, is he has been compensated about $42,000 since he began working on the pension issues between February and January of this month. One provision of the current resolution, of the Escambia County resolution, states that the committee member that we appoint, that the mayor appoints that we ratify, cannot be an elected official or regular or contract employee of the city of Pensacola. The definition of what a contract employee is a little bit vague, but if Mr. Penzone is doing good work for us as a contract, with a contract to do pension work, we would be precluded from getting any money for the city if he served on this committee for us. So we have to make a decision here, and what I'm saying is we need a little more time. This should have been put on the committee of the whole agenda. We should have had time for the public to see this and not just some mention of it. And that's all I'm asking for you tonight is your support. And I'm perfectly fine with a special committee meeting of the whole, but we have got to have a little more discussion about this.
Okay, let me see. Before I get to you the second time and before I get to you, Mr. Reynolds, I'll make a few brief remarks. As I understand the charge from the county, the recommendation is to come from the mayor, period. It does not say that the council can submit 3 alternative candidates. It does not say, it just says the mayor puts the name forward. Our job is to say yes or no. If you want to say no, that's certainly your right, and you're completely free to do that. But I don't see a need for another meeting if you already know that you're going to vote no. But I also caution you that we're playing a very dangerous game with a very short fuse. The deadline of having a name to the county is the 31st, I believe. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Now, we can sit here and argue among ourselves, and we end up without a representative on that group. I don't think that would be a very good situation to be in. Now, we can say you like the person, you don't like the person. Well, you know, you're completely free to do that. That's the beauty of a democracy. But the delay putting on to vote, it makes no sense to me. It's either yes or no. We can't say we will take Mr. Penzone if he'll run a 2-minute mile. We can't say we like Mr. Penzone if he wears a dark suit. Our job is to say yes or no. Now, having said that, I have 3 lights on. Would you like me to go to you or Councilman Myers and Pratt? Okay, Councilwoman Pratt is.
I'll be more than happy, Mr. President, once all the council has addressed their concerns or made their concerns known, to address them.
Okay. Councilwoman Myers?
I was going to offer a friendly amendment to the motion that we table this until the next COW meeting. And the friendly amendment.
He didn't ask to table, just refer.
Refer to the next COW meeting, and that is to call a special council meeting as soon as possible next week.
Okay, Councilwoman Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Trying to not to speak to the item, and not go too far off, but I'm in support of the idea of postponing, mostly because I'm sort of getting the sense from the comments that have been raised that there's some reluctance on the part of the council. When this came up, I expressed that I would support the motion that Mr. Baer had made originally to ratify the county's way of suggesting, saying that, you know, this is a great opportunity for the mayor to reach out to the council. I would love for this to be a unanimous vote in support of the mayor's person. And right now, I know it's not a unanimous vote. I think that,
excuse me,
you know, at this point, while I'm sympathetic to your idea, let's vote them up or down, and then if we vote down, the mayor could then, or we could call a special meeting next week to get a new alternative. My problem is I really would prefer not to vote against Mr. Penzone, but if it comes to that tonight, I might end up having to. So I would love the opportunity for this subject to be referred back to the committee of the whole, and for the mayor to reach out to the council and ensure that he has the votes to support the nominee. Councilman Johnson mentioned Ventina Terry. I was like, oh, she would be great. You know, I think that there's a lot of discussion that should have happened. This should have been a unanimous decision and an opportunity for the mayor to show his leadership in working with the council. And so I'm willing to push it to the committee and look forward to it being a unanimous vote on whatever nominee the mayor chooses to nominate. Thank you.
Okay, Council Member Tuhar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can't support this particular motion just because I'm in agreement with you that, you know, if he's not the right person, then we need to vote him down and move on to the next person. I don't want to go to the meeting on whenever the date is and then he gets voted down and then we're left at square one and we're just out any representation. So, you know, I wish we could, I just can't support the motion right now for those reasons. And I have concerns about Mr. Penzone too, and many of them are very important to me. So I would like to address those, but it sounds like we'll just take our vote and we'll see.
Okay. Mr. Reynolds, your light is on. Would you like to speak now, or Councilman Baer's light's on?
Yes, sir. I'll go ahead and address
Okay.
this particular issue and recognize that this item currently is on the agenda, and the questions can be asked tonight, any questions that you have. If the council determines that they want a special committee of the whole meeting, then under your rules, I have 12 hours in which to do that, and I would respectfully, the mayor's office the mayor will call a special council meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. But I don't think that's necessary. I think we can answer any questions that you have tonight. This was not an issue. It was not a surprise. This was not meant to somehow offend council. This is an individual that council has been briefed by for months and months. And if council has any issues in regards to Mr. Penzone, whether he's in a city resident, whether he's a county resident, whether he's being compensated, whether he's an employee, I'm here tonight to address those issues. So I would respectfully request that we do what the county has asked us to do, and that we try not to constantly pull apart, but actually walk down this road together with someone that you either are going to be comfortable with or not, and that's ultimately each one of your decisions on a personal level, after you've had an opportunity for me to respond to any questions that you have, and then we move forward from there. But if need be, per your rules, we can call a meeting tomorrow morning. That's your call.
Okay, Councilman Bear. And I believe this is your second time.
I'll call the question.
Okay.
Second.
It's moved and second. First order of business then is for us to vote on the question, which requires a 2/3 vote to end the debate. Please vote. Okay, so that passes by a vote of 4. Okay. With 2 against, 6-4. All right, now, next order of business, since that debate has been ended, Madam Clerk, I'll please get you to clear the Vice President's slate. And we are to vote on whether to table the motion.
Refer it to committee.
To refer to committee, okay? Does everybody understand what we're voting on?
Did we not have a friendly amendment to set the meeting for next week?
Yes.
I accept that.
We did, and that, okay, and that is included in that. Yes.
The mayor has the power to call, under your rules, a committee of the whole meeting. So let me be clear that the mayor will exercise that for the earliest opportunity, which is 12 hours from this vote.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, everybody understand what is in front of us and the conditions. All right, please vote. So that passes by a vote of 2, 4, 5 to 3. Okay. So if I understand it correctly, then there will be a call meeting tomorrow at 8 o'clock to discuss what we probably can discuss right now.
Yes, sir. At this point, the mayor, according to Section 4.03 of the City Council Procedures for Meetings, Section A, I'm sorry, Charter, the mayor has the ability to call a special meeting upon no less than 12 hours' notice to each council member and the public, and at this point, the mayor's office is making that request.
Okay. So based on that, then we will, once we finish our meeting tonight, we will meet again tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Okay. Okay. That then moves us into open forum. And I was going to say there was no cards, but we can do that one. Okay, Mr. Williams.
Jermaine Williams, 1309 Northeast Street. And I came out to the meetings throughout last year and was very hypocritical of the mayor and Chief Simmons and everything, and I have met with them and Mr. Reynolds about the violence that's going on in our community. And we had a good meeting, and as right now we're kind of at a standstill. And I reached out to Councilman Bear, and we've been talking as well. And I didn't go to the Martin Luther King parade myself, but I have seen the pictures of the mayor's Facebook page that a lot of you all were in that parade. And for a man that stood for nonviolence, I find it very hypocritical that the council didn't come together and try to do something about this violence. I mean, you know, I would like to believe we all Christians and believe in a higher power. And you see these headlines, it's heartbreaking. Where I work at, I mean, I see it all the time in the hospital. I take that home with me, and it's crazy, and it's really sad. And I was just trying to see if there's any way that you all could call a special meeting just for that alone of the violence and get some of the victims' families down here. Get this out on the agenda, just like, that whole thing with the road was a hot topic, but nobody died from it, So you all are public servants. This is a public problem. I watch our small city grow into big city crime. And it's crazy. I don't even go nowhere. I go to work, church, and home because of where I live at. And I feel like a prisoner in my own home. And a lot of people share that feeling. And a lot of people in the community want to do something about it, just don't know where to start. Like I said, I've been meeting with Mr. Simmons for a while, Mr. Reynolds, and Mayor Hayward at least once. But, we're still here. We still got people just dying. And, the funeral home business is booming. Maybe I should look into, putting some stock in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Councilman Johnson.
Sir, I'm just curious. I know you've thought a lot about this issue, and I think we talked about crime earlier. What are your thoughts on how to deal with crime? How could we better deal with crime in our community? Could you give me your top 3 suggestions, possibly?
Well, I would say, like, giving them something to do. As far as opening up like something like Frickerson a little longer, or getting to get it. Maybe I heard about the curfews. I don't know how you can enforce that. I don't even know how that would be beneficial. I did everything I can do as a private citizen, so obviously I don't know. So, I know you all, this is what y'all do. Maybe y'all don't have all the answers either, but I was just saying maybe if we could get some of the people who live in this situation and some of you all's brain power, and maybe we can meet on a common bond of something, anything. I don't know, midnight basketball league during the summer, just outside the box thinking, because we are a small city, and I'm pretty sure we have, as the mayor told me personally, it's a small budget. The city don't have no money, but it's a big city problem. So now we have to deal with it like a big city on a small, budget. So that means when money lacks, brain power has to pick up. So I don't know.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Okay, having no other business yes. Yes, Mrs. Eleanor Johnson.
I'd like to say good evening and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to speak on behalf of the violence myself. I don't know how many of you are aware of what happened to a young lady yesterday, but it's just not the male children, it's the female children as well. And I have addressed you all before about activities that are of higher order versus just sports. We have probably, if you ride one afternoon in November, you might see 300 to 400 little children playing football. And my view is a lot of those children aren't even passing classes, but they have money for the uniforms and they're out there playing football and they're there till 8, 9 o'clock. So that's a small minority group of children who are active, but they're not excelling at school. And we put a lot of focus on sports. And sports is not the only thing that's going to send our children or educate our children and develop them to be able to carry this community on after we're all dead and gone. And there is so much data out there. I am an arts provider, and I know what the arts have done for me as a child and as an adult. And we have got to get it together and find money. And it really doesn't take a lot of money. We just need safe places. We have people willing to implement programs that are of higher order thinking. And we just have to knock on the door of the school board, for one, to allow outside agencies to provide some of this higher intellectual activity. And I just want to say that if we can get those girls that were fighting yesterday, most of them are dropouts. They have children. They have had children before age 18. And lack of activity is definitely the devil's workshop. And I just don't get it. If you look at the statistics, we have a workshop on Saturday where our Florida is the worst in the country as far as juveniles being detained. And we've got to turn that around. And Escambia is the only county in the whole United States that is detaining youth. So there's got to be a serious problem here. And I agree, you all should be coming together to find some other resources, find ways to talk to parents, to talk to school board officials, because a lot of us have been knocking on the door and we're not getting anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, Councilman Pratt has something, and I don't know if she wants to address you or not.
I'm going to address your topic. You don't need to stay there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But thank you, Mr. President. And I was, thanks to Mrs. Johnson for bringing this up, and I wanted to share with the council and with the citizens that I was, back to that League of Cities meeting that I went to, one of the topics that I attended some workshops on and that had been of interest to me for a long time was after-school programming and some creative ways other communities have addressed that. And I met with the mayor about that, and he was interested, and we sort of talked about, well, wonder how we go the next step. But I did want to let the council know that I have had that conversation with him, and I hope that other council members will consider what we could do in that area. And I know Vice President Wynn is a big proponent of us addressing education, and I think it is important for us as a council to, after we get this rules workshop done, maybe some other goals workshop or strategy workshop on how to address our goals as a council. And I think that education or after-school programming should be one of our priorities. And I encourage you to look at what Providence, Rhode Island has done with their after-school programming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Myers.
Yes, I want to thank you for coming down here and raising that issue. And I hope that it's an issue that the council will have not just a discussion on, but look at our budget when we come up during our budget deliberations. I would like to point out, though, that the city does have 2 new community centers that are going in the process of being built in neighborhoods where there has been a lot of crime. And so we have a new community center that's going to be opening up at Highland Park that is going to serve a much needed population, the needs of a desperate population there. Legion Field is going to have a new community center. So I'm hoping that those 2 community centers are going to have a positive effect on a lot of our youth, and hopefully some of the issues you've raised can be addressed through our community centers. Okay.
I'm very proud that we are getting some centers, but one of the things that's very important is that we put the right people there to work with our children. Because that's another thing, that we have a cultural issue that's going on. And when kids don't know where they come from and they don't know how great they are, they lack self-esteem. So we could build a lot of centers, but if we don't get the right people to work with our children, we're still lacking.
Okay, let me make one very quick comment and then we will adjourn. You asked what can be done. One thing, or one figure that has always been seared in my memory bank is the fact that 70 to 80% of people that are incarcerated never finish high school. And so to me, one of the greatest gifts any parent can give their child is to have them develop a love of reading and education. because in my mind, the education opens the door to everything beyond that. And in that regard, I think this council is to be commended because we have presented the city a beautiful, beautiful new library downtown. We have presented the city a new library, Tryon Library, out on Councilwoman Myers' area. And I implore every parent to please bring their child to the library and develop that love of reading at a very, very early age. Because without education, everything else becomes extremely difficult. Councilman Wingate, I'll let you close this out.
I just want to say that I spent about 2 hours with the police chief this morning talking about violence and the things that they're doing. And they have a lot of things that they've implemented that should help cut down on some of the crime. But normally this violence is something that just comes up all of a sudden between a group of people, and there's no policeman there at that time. So like we were saying, we need, if there's something happening that you know about, you need to go ahead and call 911. They do have some programs called Stop the Violence, and I'm looking into trying to get something like that set up with some of our churches where they can come in and we can get a good crowd there of young people and old people to talk to that. And there's a lot of different facets to the crime, not just you know, the police part of it. We've got to go back to the education system. You've got children having children. There's a lot of different issues involved in the violence and crime in our areas, but it's going to take the community working together to get it cut down in the Pensacola area.
Thank you very much, Councilman. And with that, we are adjourned until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.